If asked to sketch a mental picture of the typical archer, I would be hard put. They seem to come in all sizes, shapes, colors, and backgrounds. Inwardly, they seem to have in common a love for the outdoors, a reverence for wildlife, and a close tie with history. There's nothing they seem to enjoy more than telling tall tales around a campfire or talking about archery to others. It would be difficult to find a more interesting group of people.
My brother shot tournament archery, and there was a little club just a couple miles down the road from me that shot every Tuesday night. They had 14 lighted targets.
Okay.
And he used to stop every Tuesday night and have coffee with me and try to talk me into going to archery shooting with him. And I told him I thought it was pretty stupid to walk around the woods shooting at paper targets, you know. I bow hunted for years.
Okay.
So finally he weakened me one night and I went with him. And I said, damn, I should have been doing this all the time. This is fun.
In 1972, a tall, skinny young man from Illinois showed up at the National Field Archery Championships in Ludlow, Massachusetts, and shocked the archery community by defeating David Hughes, the bigger-than-life Texan who had dominated the Barebow division for 4 straight years. I recently shared a camp with Denny. This is his story.
When we were kids, my brother got me into archery. He, for some reason, liked to go around the neighborhood shooting stuff with homemade bows. We'd get a piece of wood lath and put a string on it, go to the lumber yard and get some dowels and cut a notch in one end and tape a nail to the other end.
A wood lath?
And we went squirrel hunting. The terrors of the town. We were probably 8 or 10 years old.
What year was that?
I don't know. 50, in the 50s. And then one year, when we were in high school, he decided that he wanted to go bow hunting. And I don't know where it came from, but I had to go with him. And so we bought solid fiberglass bows, you know, that you could, the kind you could shoot off either left or right. And the very first deer he saw in the woods was a 15-point buck that weighed over 300 pounds. And he killed it.
Are you kidding?
72 was a much better year.
How was that Nationals?
Well, that's the highlight of my archery, I guess. And people that were around then remember that David Hughes had won 4 straight, and in '69 in '67 almost beat everybody at the Nationals.
Even freestyle.
Barebow, yeah, he beat everybody but one guy, and he didn't lose by 10 or 11 points to him. And then in '69 he shot unbelievable scores. 1080 on the field, on a double field, and I think he had 1080 on the hunter too, or close to it. Anyway, he was invincible, and in '72 I had just turned on. I shot my first 500 a couple of years before that, but in '72 I got turned on. We swapped the lead each day, and 5 days we were never more than 4 or 5 points apart. Went into the last target on the animal, and he was up 2 points, and his arrow cut halfway through the line, and mine was in the middle. So I ended up beating him 2 points, which was a shock, literally a shock to everybody, because his sponsor had already rented the town hall for his victory celebration.
Kind of like Dewey wins the presidency, right?
Yeah. It was really wild. And that's when when he left to go back to Texas, he gave me the belt at the end of the day at the airport, and that was the start of the tradition of the Barebow belt, the Texas belt they call it. Which he said, I'm not the champ anymore, and that's what it said on the back of the belt. He said, I'll get it back next year. And he didn't.
Denny won the Nationals in '72 and again in '73. In 1974, he showed up at the Nationals with a recurve overdraw that he and Harold Groves had fabricated, but the big Texan surprised them all with a compound barebow. Once again, David Hughes was on top. David Hughes fought cancer for several years. The Barebow greats gathered in Yankton in 2008 to shoot one last time with David. He went out on top. David Hughes died in the fall of 2010. He will forever be a legend of the Barebow. 1987, K. McManus drove to Blue Springs, Missouri, and unseated Gloria Shelley, who had reigned in the women's barebow category for 6 straight years. Kay would go on to win the National Field Championship 17 of the next 22 years.
I worked for a taxidermist in New Jersey, and I noticed in October I was the only one working. Everybody was going. I found out, where is everybody going? Why am I the only one working? They were all out bow hunting. So my dad had given me a little Ben Pearson, one of those come apart at the handle green fiberglass, and that was my first hunting bow, 35 pounds. And I went out there and I stuck a deer with it, and I thought, this ain't gonna work. So I got a decent recurve, which I still have actually, quite old. And went out and practiced, and the next year I went hunting in October with the rest of the guys. So I wasn't gonna sit there and be the only one working. And then I wanted to keep in shape hunting season, so I thought, well, let me see what this archery tournament stuff is about in the summertime. So I've never seen a tournament shoot. I pictured in my mind that everybody's standing out in the field like the Olympic style, shooting in there in the hot sun. Being in Florida, you didn't want to shoot in the hot sun, right? So that's what I thought it was going to be like. So I didn't know that there was such a thing as a field round, everybody shooting out in the woods and walking these little trails. And first one, me and one man, I was living at Fort Dix, McGuire Air Force Base and Fort Dix are combined. I was living there at the time, and me and one fella put in a 14 target field range. I didn't know what the thing was supposed to look like, right? He knew, and so I was doing the labor and helping him. And the very first tournament they had, there was only one lady there, and she wasn't shooting sights. And I knew I didn't want to shoot sights, but I didn't know the difference between barebow and bow hunter, and so I asked if I could walk around with them. And it was, her name was Carol Davies, and her husband Bob Davies, and a guy named Mike McCarty, and his uncle, which happens to be Old Joe.
I should have never went to that shoot.
So I asked, being her, she was the only woman there, I asked, could I walk around with you guys and see what this tournament shooting is about? I've never shot one, right? I never shot anything over 20 yards. So they said, yeah. So I followed them around, and they walked around, and they told dirty jokes, and they drank beer. They come in at halftime and had a steak for lunch. And I says, yeah, I could get into this sport. So I started shooting for tournaments then.
I can remember the first real wooden arrow I ever had. There was a boy who lived down the street from us, and he lived with his grandparents, and they gave him anything he wanted. And we lived in the country, all woods. And I was walking by his place one day, and he's got a bow and wooden arrows, and just shooting the arrows across the street into the woods. So I waited till he went in the house, and I went over in the woods, and I found one of them arrows. Boy, was I proud. I had a store-made arrow, right? So my sister, who's 13 years older than me, her boyfriend and his brother come over that afternoon, and I'm out in the yard shooting my arrow. You know, it's got feathers on it and all really nice. So one of them said, can I shoot your bow and arrow? I said, yeah, and he picked it up and shot it into the shit house and broke my arrow.
About 25 yards from it, that horizontal.
60 yards,
Aim over that little
30% drop.
split finger. Yeah.
Hi, we ready?
Get a picture of this because we're gonna have to remember what
Yeah, we'll never find his arrows.
This will never happen.
Nope. I heard
You hit that log.
I'm just to the left of it, right?
He was way off to the left.
I thought you hit that log above it.
I thought he was way off to the left.
Sounded more like paper to me.
No, that was a,
No, if it was paper, it would have
that
gone.
was a dirt bank.
I don't see your arrow.
Come on, Danny, you can do it. I should have bought my binoculars. But they ought to be sticking out pretty good.
Yeah, they won't go too far off.
You don't have to aim too high on this one because you're shooting downhill. Gravity's going to take over.
Don't worry, they're Paul's arrows. I don't care if you lose them.
You're just to the right of the target. See the log where it comes down? You're just right to the right.
All right, Kay.
I ain't shooting that.
Come on, Kay.
My arrows it won't shoot 20 yards.
Come on, Kay.
I want.
If you break them, they make plenty more of them.
I ain't buying the damn thing.
I didn't say anything about that.
All right, where in the hell should I hold?
That way. You think mine was about
Did you have your Did you have your shelf anywhere that I
No, you just aim somewhere over in the bank or just above it.
could, above it? I'm gonna have to put my shelf about where that horizontal rim is.
No, you're shooting about 30 degrees downhill.
But I'm only shooting it about half draw.
I'll tell you, go ahead and
Well,
go.
maybe.
Now keep it on the rest. Don't get excited.
I ain't too excited.
Aim a little bit higher. Right there.
It was a decent shot, but I don't know where it went.
It's still flying.
All right, Jimmy.
All right, Jimmy. Your
Jimmy,
turn.
hold the camera for Jim.
Shoot Kay's arrow.
Yours seem to be flying okay.
Okay, Jimmy's shooting the one with the fletching bad on it.
Yeah, you're right.
Mine hit something hard.
You never want to give me credit for beating
Am I
you
in
with
that
your
log
own
down
arrow.
there?
Yeah, give him credit when you whip your tail with your own bow and arrows. You remember that?
You're going to be lucky to hit the bank over there, Jimmy.
Remember that story you told us about Davy coming to visit you and he didn't bring nothing?
I really don't remember. Honest to God.
Well, you told the story, or David did.
Probably did.
Good form, but you suck at your shot. Damn, I made a good shot.
Oh, I think that was with one with the bad fletch.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. That's Jimmy's shot right there. Wait a minute, I see Paul's.
Where's Paul's at?
Oh, in the bank behind it.
I'll tell you what, we didn't miss it by too much, Jimmy, but I did see you run up here and pick that arrow up from way up there.
I absolutely have no idea what you're talking about. All I know is that's my arrow.
Which one is that?